Ohio State does play a football game later on this evening. They'll play Minnesota in their only home game of the month. I'm Stephen Means, that's Andrew Gillis. But there's also some news on the recruiting front that could be on the verge of happening at some point over the next 8 hours here. Jalen Brewster, 5-star defensive lineman from the 2027 class, the number 9 player and the number 1 defensive lineman in the country out of Cedar Hill, Texas, will be making his commitment as we are watching Ohio State play Minnesota. So Ohio State can be trying to get a win on the field. We're also trying to get a win off of the field. Andrew, is this it's a big deal because it's a 5-star recruit, but is this a absolutely have to have him? What the heck are you doing if you didn't get him? Like, break the class type of win or loss for Ohio State, or is this only a beneficial win if they do get Jalen Brewster, but it doesn't necessarily change things in terms of how you view Ohio State's recruiting efforts if they don't get Jalen Brewster?
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily makes me look at things differently. It's a little unique of a recruitment, right? I think the fact that Ohio State is in the mix with this late for a commitment and for a recruitment that has pretty clearly kind of come down to NIL is going to be one of the biggest factors, I think is notable, right? There are, all kinds of reports out there from his agent and things like that. And yes, for, those that don't know, high schoolers do have agents now. Whenever you have to deal with these, contracts that can extend to 7 figures, you need somebody to kind of deal with that. So, there's all this kind of reporting out there, and Ohio State seems to be in the mix. And I think, that is notable. That is certainly important. Obviously, Texas Tech is in the mix. A&M's in the mix. Oregon, we'll see. Like, the fact that Ohio State seems to be kind of going blow for blow there is certainly notable. So, this is not a David Sanders situation where you look at and you don't get a 5-star for whatever reason, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, whether it's playing, whatever, doesn't matter. This isn't, I don't believe, one of those situations. This is one of those situations to where if you lose, there are still other options. Like, it's important to remember, Jaylen Brewster is a 27 kid. He's not going to sign for 14 months. Like, signing day is not until December 26th for him. So not only is this recruitment not over, you still have a lot of time, right? You go look at some of the top classes in 27, not just Ohio State. There are like a lot of classes that are not really all that filled out right now. And there are a lot of classes that still need to be filled out. So, this is not make or break. This is not how you change the class. I think the process is maybe a little bit more interesting to me. And the fact that Ohio State is kind of in the mix right now, and the fact that Ohio State does seem to kind of be, moving towards something that is pretty aggressive, I think is pretty notable.
So then, if they get him, if later on this evening we're discussing Jalen Brewster as he's a future Buckeye, not a guy that Ohio State's trying to land or didn't land, what is he? 6'3", 302. Is there a player on Ohio State's roster right now or in recent history that maybe he is comparable to in terms of what Ohio State would be getting in Jalen Brewster as an interior defensive lineman? I'm assuming he's a defensive tackle at 302 pounds, unless he's a freak.
Yeah, you want to say Tyleik Williams. You think that this is the kind of player that, when he reaches his full potential, when he reaches his full peak, this is somebody who he's got the requisite size, he's got the requisite athleticism. Like, he camped this summer. He looked pretty impressive. Tyleik Williams was like 6'3", 230. Brewster is 6'3",
330.
Well, did I say 230? Sorry, 330. Yeah.
Two very different human beings.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, one plays receiver, one plays defensive tackle. So 6'3", 330. Brewster 6'3", 302. Like, there's gonna be some obviously body composition changes, but like, this is one of those players to where, you look at him and say he's kind of built for this. Like, he's kind of ready to go now. Like, his physical kind of hold up here is not going to be, or his physical growth is not really going to be an issue. We talk so much about offensive and defensive linemen being, wow, like they need to go to campus. And man, we talked about, like, Steven, how many times did we look at Edric Houston and go, that guy's going to be really good? But in spring practice of his freshman year, we were like, he's kind of light. He's a little light. And that's not the case with Brewster. Brewster does have that mix. So I think Tyleek is a good comp for him. This is one of those interior players, you think of maybe not play style, maybe not, kind of what they do, but you think of a player like a Mason Graham who went in the top 10. Like, this is his ceiling, right? This is somebody that when he shows up, he's one of those difference makers to where you say, you know what, I know he doesn't rush off the edge, but what he can do in the pocket and what he can do to the pocket is going to be very, very impressive. So, yeah, there's just a lot to like about this kid. And, I think having that level of pass rush on the interior would be just incredible for Ohio State.
So he's more in, ironically enough, two guys from Texas, Riley Pettijohn, Devin Sanchez type of, I come in here as a true freshman and I can play meaningful snaps for you immediately if you need me to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, you think about where this room can be. Like, Cade McDonald is a third-year guy. I don't know if he's going to come back. I would assume maybe that is a point of emphasis for Ohio State to bring him back. But Tywone Malone's going to go. So you have Cade McDonald. Let's say he returns. Edric Houston will be back. Will Smith Jr. is there. You have Eric Mensah there. Jason Moore hasn't really popped like we, maybe have thought he might have, and right. He's kind of buried on the depth chart. So, you don't want to speculate there, but he just hasn't played, and it's his third year at Ohio State. And then, you've got Jarquez Carter, you've got Trajan Odom, you got Maxwell Roy. Like, you've got guys that are kind of lower on the depth chart that we'll have to see. But there's an opening for him to be a fifth defensive tackle, sixth defensive tackle, kind of the day that he could walk in the room, because Cade McDonald will be gone. Like, this is 2 years on the line. McDonald will be gone. Houston, he'll have just finished up his third year. We'll see. Like, all those guys that I mentioned, they're going to be phasing out, and Jaylen Brewster has a chance to really come in here and kind of just immediately be one of those dudes where you go, oh, he's one of those dudes.
And one other person I want to talk about before we get out of here, Landry Breed, a three-star offensive tackle for Menor, Ohio, who's currently committed to NC State. I read he's going to be here again today. Is that true?
Yeah, that is what I've been led to believe. Yes, that Breed will be here. He took a visit. He's currently committed to NC State. He took a visit to NC State last weekend, the week that Ohio State played at Washington, and then this weekend he's going to be here.
This is my own interpretation of what's happening here.
Okay.
And you can nod, say nothing if I'm correct in this. He went to NC State last weekend to say thank you, but no thank you. I'll be staying home. And maybe it is a fair assumption to think that at some point between today and the end of next week, he makes the flip from NC State to Ohio State. Is that I don't know anything. So that's just my interpretation. Is that a fair assumption of what might be happening, whether it happens today or sometime next week?
See, I don't know what to do, because yes, it's a fair assumption. So I want to just nod silently, but it's also a fair assumption to where he went down to NC State, and NC State, I mean, they are much, I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it desperate, but they've got 18 commits in their class, and per the composite, he's their top-rated offensive lineman, and they see him as a tackle. So think about that. Ohio State sees him as an interior player, and the fifth addition to a class, NC State sees him as their left tackle in this class. So you wonder, like, it's a fair assumption that he went to NC State, said, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Have a nice life. Go Pack. I'm going to go to Columbus. Totally fair. Totally reasonable to assume that. It's reasonable to also assume that he went to NC State and they went, no, wait. And they threw a bunch of money at him and said, please don't leave. I would venture to guess it's the first one. I would lean the first one,
Okay.
but I don't know if it's necessarily unreasonable that it's the second one.
All I'm saying is home,
Mm-hmm.
and to the point of, I mean, NC State's trying to make him a tackle, and Ohio State's trying to make him a guard. They tried to make Austin Saraville a guard too, and right now he's playing left tackle and playing it really well. So I'm sure there's always a conversation about where a guy projects into a depth chart. And I'm sure those conversations will be having, but who knows what's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years of Landry's life in his physical development, and now he is going to develop. Right? They always say you find your best five and then you put them on the field. And Austin Saraville being the best five meant being the rotating interior offensive lineman last season. This year, it means being the left tackle. And right now, he looks like he's going to be all Big Ten and at least vie for some All-American consideration. Caden Proctor probably has one of those tackle spots locked up for All-American. But I don't know. Can Austin Saraville still? So Austin Saraville never thought he was going to play tackle here. And yet he's playing the most important position on the offensive line right now from the NFL standards in terms of how they draft people. So who knows, Landry? We'll see what happens, though. Go ahead.
Anything else? I was just going to add really, really quickly. Important to note with Breed, one of, I believe it's still the plan. It's been the plan for months for one of Ohio State's commits, Aaron Thomas, a tackle, to take a visit to Florida State. His dad played at Florida State. Florida State plays Miami tonight. That's been the plan. So I say Breed might be the fifth. It's important to assume that, or it's important to understand, not assume, that Breed might have a little bit more importance in this class if he ends up being the fourth, not the fifth, because Ohio State needs to look elsewhere for another tackle. We could talk about that on Monday when we do our recruiting pod, or on Tuesday when we do our recruiting pod. But just wanted to throw that out there of like, just keep that in mind in the back of your head today.
That's of note because Florida State seems to be very busy going, hey, remember your dad played here. You should play here too. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. We'll be texting all day today as we're watching games and waiting on Ohio State, Minnesota to kick off at 7:30 inside the shoe. Also on NBC if you're not in Columbus. But also when the Brewster news happens, that's the first place we'll go with it. When Landry Breed, whatever he decides to do, that's the first place we go with it. It's to those texts. You don't have to go searching for it. It's going to come straight to your phone. Ohio State, Minnesota later on this evening, but we wanted to start the day off with some recruiting news with one of these live pods. That's Andrew. I am Steven. See you after the game.